Good morning, sixth graders. It is Tuesday, May 19th. We just have a couple of weeks left and we will be finished with school for this year. Um, Today's reading lesson is on page 23 and it is an excerpt from a novel. Now, an excerpt, I believe we've talked about this before, but an excerpt is a part from a novel. So they go in and they take out 2 or 3 pages. And so this is that excerpt, that piece from the novel, Black Beauty. So it says, read the excerpt from the novel, then answer the questions that follow. This excerpt is from a novel told from the point of view of a horse named Black Beauty. All right, so number 1 paragraph, it says, one day late in the autumn, my master had a long journey to go on business. So remember, when you see I and my, they're talking, this is from the point of view of the horse, okay? I was put into the dog cart, and John went with his master. There had been a great deal of rain, and now the wind was very high and blew the dry leaves across the road in a shower. We went along merrily till we came to the toll bar and the low wooden bridge. The river banks were rather high, and the bridge, instead of rising, went across just level, so that in the middle, if the river was full, the water would be nearly up to the woodwork and planks. But as there were good substantial rails on each side, people did not mind it. The man at the gate said the river was rising fast, and he feared it would be a bad night. Many of the meadows were under water, and in one low part of the road the water was halfway up to my knees. The bottom was good, and master drove gently, so it was no matter. When we got to the town, of course, I had a good bait, but as the master's business engaged him a long time, we did not start for home till rather late in the afternoon. The wind was then much higher, and I heard the master say to John that he had never been out in such a storm, and so I thought, as we went along the skirts of a wood, where the great branches were swaying about like twigs, and the rushing sound was terrible. I wish we were well out of this wood, said my master. Yes, sir, said John. It would be rather awkward if one of these branches came down upon us. The words were scarcely out of his mouth when there was a groan and a crack and a splitting sound, and tearing, crashing down among the other trees came an oak, torn up by the roots, and it fell right across the road just before us. That was a very near touch, said my master. What's to be done now? Well, sir, we can't drive over that tree, nor yet get round it, but there will be nothing for it but to go back to the 4 crossways, and that will be a good 6 miles before we get round to the wooden bridge again. So back we went and round by the crossroads, but by the time we got to the bridge, it was very nearly dark. We could just see that the water was over the middle of it, but as that happened sometimes when the floods were out, master did not stop. We were going along at a good pace, but the moment my feet touched the first part of the bridge, I felt sure there was something wrong. I dare not go forward, and I made a dead stop. Go on, Beauty, said my master, and he gave me a touch with the whip, but I dare not stir. He gave me a sharp cut. I jumped, but I dare not go forward. There's something wrong, sir, said John, and he sprang out of the dog cart and came to my head and looked all about. He tried to lead me forward. Come on, Beauty, what's the matter? Of course, I could not tell him, but I knew very well that the bridge was not safe. Just then, the man at the toll gate on the other side ran out of the house, tossing a torch about like one mad. What's the matter? Shouted my master. The bridge is broken in the middle and part of it is carried away. If you come on, you'll be into the river." "Thank God," said my master. "You beauty," said John, and took the bridle and gently turned me round to the right-hand road by the riverside. The sun had set some time. The wind seemed to have lulled off after that furious blast which tore up the tree. It grew darker and darker, stiller and stiller. I trotted quietly along, the wheels hardly making a sound on the soft road. We saw a light at the hall door and at the upper windows, and as we came up in let me reread 15. We saw a light at the hall door and at the upper windows, and as we came up, Mistress ran out, saying, "Are you really safe, my dear? Oh, I have been so anxious, fancying all sorts of things. Have you had no accident?" "No, my dear, but if your black beauty had not been wiser than we were, we should all have been carried down the river at the wooden bridge." I heard no more as they went into the house and John took me to the stable. Oh, what a good supper he gave me that night! A good bran mash and some crushed beans with my oats and such a thick bed of straw. And I was glad of it, for I was tired. All right, let's look at our questions. Answer the questions. Mark your answers to questions 1 to 3 on the answer form to the right. Or you can just circle it here is fine. Okay, we are going, okay. All right, it says, read this sentence from paragraph 3. "The wind was much higher, and I heard the master say to John that he had never been out in such a storm. And so I thought, as we went along the skirts of a wood where the great branches were swaying about like twigs, and the rushing sound was terrible." Which part of the story's plot structure does this sentence illustrate? Exposition, climax, rising action, falling action. All right, so we have, which part of the story's plot structure does this sentence illustrate? Okay, so the wind was much higher, and I heard the master say to John that he had never been out in such a storm. So I thought as we went along the skirts of a wood, and where the great branches were swaying about like twigs, and the rushing sound was terrible. Our choices are exposition, climax, rising action, falling action. All right. So the exposition is where we're introduced to the situation in the story and the characters. So the exposition is usually right around the first paragraph. And so this would be the exposition. Do you see? This is where we are introduced to the fact that the time is late autumn. And there has been a lot of rain, and the wind has picked up, and it's blowing the leaves, and the riverbanks are high. Okay, so that's the exposition. So when it goes down here and it starts to talk about let's see. All right, right here. "The wind was then much higher, and I heard the master say to John that he had never been out in such a storm. And so I thought, as we went along the skirts of a wood where the great branches were swaying about like twigs, and the rushing sound was terrible." All right, so this is rising action. Okay, it's building up excitement. Okay, rising action. Okay. We haven't got to the climax yet. So on that little curve that we often see, like this, with a story, where this is the exposition and then this is the rising action. That's what that sentence is that we just saw in number 1. Okay, so it's at the beginning of the story. It's after the setting and the character introduction. So number 1 would be C. All right, I hope you see that. All right, let's move on now. Oops. I got to go down here to 2. So, okay. So it says, which of these sentences shows how the plot is resolved? All right. Well, that, when it asks for how a plot is resolved, how the problem in the story is solved. And you would find that near the end of the story because that's what a resolution is. So the problem, of course, was the bridge was broken, and Black Beauty, he knew not to go. But of course, they didn't understand. They didn't know if he was just being stubborn. And so the resolution is, no, my dear, because she asked, were you really safe? Have you had no accident? No, but if your Black Beauty had not been wiser than we were, we should all have been carried down the river at the wooden bridge. So Black Beauty saved them by being not going across that bridge. He was the wiser one, and so that's how it was resolved. Okay, so that would be. No, my dear, but if you're Black Beauty, we just read that, okay? So this would still be part of the rising action. And these are not resolutions, is what I'm trying to say here, is this is not the answer to the problem. Okay, so yes, this tells us about how the bridge was broken, but it doesn't tell how the group was saved by Black Beauty not going across the bridge. All right, and number 3, what is the main conflict in the story? A, the storm causes a large branch to fall and nearly hit Black Beauty and the men. B, the men want Black Beauty to cross the bridge, but he knows it is out. The bridge breaks and is washed away by the rising water. The master must go into town for business during a terrible storm. Okay, so see, what happens is all of these were in the story, but we want to talk about what the main problem, main conflict, okay? And I hope you see that it's this one. The men want Black Beauty to cross the bridge, but he will not cross it, even though they keep trying to get him to cross it, because he knows or he senses that it's out. He senses danger. Okay, that's the conflict. Okay, whoops. All right. Now, on number 4, I am going to let you do this one, and you should be able to do it with all that we've talked about. Explain how Black Beauty's decision not to cross the bridge changes the story. Use at least 2 details from the story in your answer. Okay, so you remember what Miss Allen has taught you to always begin or restate the question. So you might say, Black Beauty's decision not to cross the bridge changes the story because, and go back up here. And so this is the kind of response where, as long as you can support your answer with details from the text and it makes sense, then, it can be more than one reason or way that Black Beauty's decision not to cross the bridge changes the story. They got home much later, and so his wife was worried a long time and worrying about different scenarios that maybe they had an accident. He certainly got a great dinner that night, didn't he? Other than what he would normally get. So you just look for things in there that you can put together in a paragraph, and it says use at least 2 details from the story in your answer. All right, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, I take that back. I forgot we have writing to do, so hold on for just a minute while I bring up the writing. And I believe you have today just a prompt. Can I move this? There we go. All right, so your question today, let me just check, but I believe that hold on if I can find it. Your assignment today was for writing. Let's see, I believe it's journal entry 5. Okay, let's find it. Journal entry 5. Yeah, we did figures of speech last week. Okay, so it says, today you woke up and were told you are the president of a new country. You can name the country anything you'd like and make all the laws. What decisions would you make? Write an announcement to the people of your country explaining everything to them. Oh, wow, this could be fun. All right, so you wake up and you're the president of a new country. You can make all the laws and you make all the decisions, and you need to write about how you would explain that to your people. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Bye.